This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
Final hour, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 9 a.m. Wednesday, August 13th, right here on Jocks. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Apps in your app store. You can go listen there. We heard from a couple of other offensive coordinators, head coaches around the SEC. We're going to go to Austin, Texas, talk to Fozzy Whittaker, now with ESPN. Played for the Longhorns, lives in Austin, covers the Longhorns now, covers college football. And it feels like the offensive line depth already taken a few hits so far in fall camp, Fozzy, and that's a group that has to replace a lot of experience and a lot of talent. Where would you just say your comfort level is with that group right now as we approach kickoff?
Hey, what's up, fellas? Appreciate y'all having me on. And to answer your question, I would probably say that's where I'm the most concerned, even not just with the offense, but the entire team. If I had to pinpoint an area where I would love a little bit stronger confidence in there, and losing Andre Kojo obviously is a blow to that depth, like you mentioned, as he was trying to battle for that right tackle position. But it's an area that you talked about. These guys last year had one of the best offensive line groups that Texas had seen in a very, very long time. Multiple guys drafted, which hadn't happened at the offensive line position for Texas in forever. And those guys really showcased who they were and helped keep that offense afloat and continuously keeping Quinn safe, and obviously the run game, it was what it was. So having to replace those four guys, it means a lot. And obviously, Cole, you know exactly how that's feel, trying to get the consistency and continuity and the chemistry down with your fellow brethren. That's the most difficult position on the offensive side of the ball, is getting all five guys to work in accordance with each other, and doing that against people that are freaks of nature on the other side. And obviously, Greg, you know how important it is to have that chemistry and continuity to stay upright, and to continue to make the checks, or continue to put your offense in the best position to win. So it's an area of concern, but I do believe they have the right person coaching them. Obviously, Kyle Flood and his pedigree and what he's been able to showcase, and the amount of development that he's shown in his 4 years, now going on 5 years at the University of Texas, and having as many players drafted as he's had in the previous two seasons, kind of goes to show you that developmental strength and the power that he has as a coach, and the way that they've been able to recruit. And I will add a little bit of additional comfort with Kyle Flood being the coach, is that the guys that are coming in to replace the people that we saw last year, they have been in the program and in the system. So they're not seeing football for the first time at the collegiate level and against SEC competition. They've rotated in last year, and guys have experience. So that is a small bonus that I don't want to undermine with these guys that'll be trying to keep Arch Manning upright for the entire season.
Well, the one thing I continue to hear about, though, is just a reminder that how good Arch Manning has been with his legs in fall camp. I've heard the offensive line struggled against those edge rushers. I get it. It makes sense. But Arch's legs can help this offensive line a lot. My only fear is, would he potentially run too much and expose himself to injury? Because we've seen Texas quarterbacks get banged up in each of the last 3 or 4 years. So how much have his legs been utilized so far in fall camp?
You know, it hasn't necessarily been a focal point. Like, it's not like a particular short yardage package or anything in particular that Sark has kind of, I guess, implemented, or at least that I can tell that's been implemented. But I guess the best positive about having a mobile quarterback, or a guy that can get loose in open space, is obviously extending plays and being able to keep his eyes downfield while being able to extend those plays. And if he needs to, he can tuck it. But obviously safety is going to be the number one priority, because you want to protect the valuable asset that Arch Manning is. And he has a strong arm, so I can see him escaping the pocket, still looking downfield and having an opportunity to really break open some huge explosive plays for this Texas offense. And I think that's where Texas is going to have to live against some of the defenses that they will face, is having to win on the off-schedule plays, right? You talked about some inconsistencies that may arise with the offensive line going against the stud talent. Well, that's where your game breaker got to be the X factor, and I think Arch Manning can absolutely be that. But I think Steve Sarkisian is going to be wise and smart with how he's utilized from a running perspective, and I don't imagine him having too many running packages like we saw him sprinkled in last year to kind of give Quinn Ewers some relief in short yardage situations.
Fozzy Whittaker of ESPN, former Texas Longhorn, discussing the Longhorns here on McElroy Cubelic in the morning on the Higginbotham Hotline. Something I heard Sark mention at media days, Fozzy, that I was not really aware of or had not heard discussed much more was Trey Moore sort of moving off the ball. An elite pass rusher. We've seen him at two different places be able to get to the quarterback. How much is his role going to be different this year than maybe what we've seen him do in the past?
I think it's actually a little bit more still similar to what he did last year. Now, his first year, he was more in that typical defensive end, right on the edge of the ball, edge of the line, kind of holding it down in a particular way that he was at UTSA. But last year, you see him move around off ball quite a bit. And I'm from what I've seen and watched in spring practice and heard from fall camp as well, that seems to be the kind of positioning that he'll take. And whenever we say off the ball, that doesn't mean he's going to live in the box per se off the line of scrimmage. That's just kind of his quote-unquote position listed on the roster. But the way PK loves to utilize his defense, kind of very similar in the same way that Anthony Hill, he lines up at middle linebacker, but then a certain package goes in, whether it's a NASCAR package or a different type of dime package, then he rolls down and becomes the defensive end. You're going to see a lot more of that, where he's going to be listed as linebacker, but he's still going to be playing that kind of defensive end / outside linebacker in a rush type of situation to utilize what he does best, which is get after the passer. So I think it just helps continue to make that defense a little bit more multiple. Offenses have to plan for multiple different looks of the likes of Trey Moore and Anthony Hill Jr. and Colin Simmons being rotated around, but I do believe it'll be a little bit more similar to what we saw a season ago.
What's the one thing outside of the offensive line that could potentially get this team? Because I think everybody looks at it and it's like they're stacked across the board. They're deep. They're well coached. They have good continuity on defense. They have great coaching continuity overall. But the offensive line, big question. Arch, little bit of a question, but still a question nonetheless. So what is it that can get this team if it's not Arch's inexperience or the offensive line?
Yeah, the thing that I always look into is the impact of guys that were, I guess, a huge part of the success a season ago. I truly believe the likes of Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba were the reason why Texas defense performed as well as it did a season ago and created the number of takeaways that they did. Both of those guys responsible for 5 interceptions themselves. And we obviously know Jahdae Barron goes on to win the Thorpe. Andrew Makuba, second-round draft pick. They were cerebral. Like, if you want to talk ball, you want to break down ball, you want to talk about getting into the best position to be successful, those guys erased a lot on the back end. And thankfully, Michael Taft is coming back, because if he was going to, it'd be a whirlwind of pain for Texas' secondary. But I do believe there'll be some growing pain, similar to the offensive line, right? You lose some big cog pieces like that. You got to figure out who you are, what your identity is, and how well you can adapt to the new situations that's at hand. I think some of that may be the case in the secondary, even though they have veteran guys that have played before. Muhammad on the outside, Gilbo on the outside, Jelani McDonald sprinkling in as well. And then you got some new guys that'll have to surface and make a name for themselves. But I believe that secondary is where, if something gets Texas, it's because they're not as buttoned up as we saw them a year ago with the likes of Jahdae Barron and obviously Andrew Makuba.
Anything that you've learned through camp, realized through camp, kind of found out about through camp that you didn't know going in, that sort of changed your opinion on this team or a position group thus far?
Yeah, a big question mark that people have is that interior defensive line position because of where Texas has been over the past few seasons, creating and generating draft picks, and then now you kind of like, okay, who's going to replace the stud guys that you've lost over the past 3 NFL draft selections? And I believe the addition from the transfer portal, you got Watson, you got Brevard, you got Shaw, and then the newest addition, freshman Justice Terry, I think is going to be an absolute monster, and Alex January probably be one of the day one starters on that interior defensive line. I think they're actually really, really good. Obviously, you got the edge rushers to pair with it, but those guys, I believe, will continue to uphold the standard of what the president had been set with Ojimo and Coburn a few seasons back whenever they got drafted, and then obviously Sweat and Murphy, and then even last year Collins and Broughton. I think they'll live up to what legacy has been left behind at that interior defensive line position, and I think that was a little bit of a question mark for me, and then a surprise whenever I start witnessing how well they moved around. That, okay, I don't think those question marks will last long once everybody gets a chance to see them in action.
Finally, Fozzy, looking at just kind of where things are and where the SEC is, what does success look like for Texas this year? What is the fan base's expectations? Is it national championship or bust? Or are they a little more reasonable when assessing some of the pieces that have to be replaced?
I think it depends on which Texas fan you're talking to and what time of day it is. Obviously, national championship or bust is the first thing that comes to mind, right? You see the number one preseason ranking in the AP and the coaches poll, and a lot of Texas fans, they just naturally gravitate to that. They haven't been here before. Everybody's seeing it for the first time. The Arch Manning effect, like everything's all peachy at the moment. And so everybody feels as though it's the calling for Texas to win a national championship. Sark been knocking on the door the past couple of seasons. Like everything comes together. And rightfully so, right? That's why you coach at the University of Texas. That's why you play at the University of Texas. You want to have a chance to win a national championship. But the more and more I start talking with a few people, then they understand that what happened last year in comparison to winning a national championship, you don't have to be flawless throughout the regular season. And Ohio State was a perfect example of finishing fourth in your conference, getting hot at the right time, and then going on a run to win a national championship and doing it in dramatic fashion against this very own team. So I think with the 12 teams and the way that has played out, it's kind of changed the perspective that, hey, number one, going maybe undefeated or staying as the number one ranking is great, but realistically, winning a national championship doesn't mean you have to play perfect week in and week out. It just means you need to play great and then get hot at the right time, and I think that's where most fans in Austin kind of settle in.
Fozzy, we asked this question earlier in the show with the AP poll coming out yesterday. I just be interested to kind of get your thoughts, big picture. But how many teams do you think possibly can win a national championship this year? You think could find a way to put things together, make a run, get through that playoff, and hoist a trophy at the end of the season?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's so many new faces that are leading programs, which makes it so difficult to tell like how good a team really is going to be. But that's part of our job, right? We got to project a little bit and utilize our expertise. Put Clemson up there number one just because I think they have the best passer in the country and a ton of surrounding talent, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defensive side of the ball as well. I put Penn State up there for the same reasons, returning a great leader in Drew Aller. I think he continues to take a next step forward underneath Andy Kotelnicki, who I love as an offensive coordinator. Defense has never been an issue for Penn State. And then you got two monsters at the running back position. I always got to talk about RBs. Come on now, you know So I think they'll also create, obviously, opportunities for Penn State to control games whenever they need to. I look at Alabama as a team. Ty Simpson named the starter. It's his time, right? He's obviously been ridiculed in the past, but I think this is his moment. You got one of the best receivers to throw to, and Ryan Williams. You got running backs. You got a defense to help you. Kalen DeBoer, year number 2, getting settled in, so I think they have a chance. I also look at Ohio State, obviously the defending national champions. As a team, Texas, I believe, can win it. Georgia's always going to be in the conversation until they tell me they can't be. And I think for the most part, those are the teams. And at LSU, let me not forget about Garrett Nussmeier, who I think is one of the top quarterbacks in the country as well. I believe Brian Kelly can get it fixed and get all phases of his team in accordance, working towards that common goal. And I think this could be the year that they do that. And that's where I see realistically those teams having a chance to win a national championship this upcoming season.
There you go, Fozzy. Great stuff, man. Thanks for hopping on. Always appreciate the time, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, fellas. I appreciate you all. And, man, football is almost here. Let's go, baby.
It's close. We're getting there. Fozzy Whittaker joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Appreciate that time. We'll continue going around college football. He brought up a name that I have wanted to bring up with Greg for the last couple of weeks. It's not an SEC team, but it is a team that people believe can win a national championship. And I'm going to ask Greg, does this individual need to be different in order for that team to actually go win a title? That's next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, and Three-Man Front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.